So I'm going to show you how to set up Node, NPM, and VS Studio Code as a text editor. The reason I want to make this video is one of the things that comes up a lot in our meetup group is people who have started learning coding. They've maybe learned some JavaScript or Python, but they've been learning kind of online, so they have just a sandbox to run their code in, but they don't know how to go from that to running a real program on their machine. So this video is about Node, but I'll probably do another one for Python and Ruby and Go, maybe Rust as well, just demonstrating how to get your local environment set up so you can start writing real code. For Node, I think the best way to get started on Windows is to use something called Node Version Manager for Windows, or NVM for Windows. This also exists for Mac and Linux. I'll probably do a video about Mac and Linux as well. But for Windows, you need to use this version, nvm-windows on GitHub. It's actually a totally different project from the one that works on Mac and Linux, but does the same thing. Basically, NVM will let you manage which version of Node your computer's running. You can change between Node versions easily, and it's just kind of the quickest and fastest way to get Node set up. So once you visited this URL, and I'll put this in the notes of the video at the bottom, you can download it here with this download now link. And I would recommend getting this version, the nvm-setup.zip. Comes with an actual installer, so it's a little easier to go through. So just grab that, extract it, and then run the program nvm-setup. Yes, you want to allow the changes to your device and can accept the agreement. Just use the default setup location is fine. Probably leave this the same and install that. Okay, so it's that easy to get NVM installed. But once you have NVM installed, you also need to install Node using NVM. So the first thing that I would do is go to the Node website just to maybe check out what the latest versions are. There's two different kind of simultaneously running versions of Node. There's what's called the LTS, or long-term support version. This is an older version, but it means that Node guarantees support for that for some amount of time, usually pretty long amount of time, multiple years. And then there's also the very latest version, which is usually fine. They just haven't kind of guaranteed it with a long-term support commitment. It doesn't matter too much which one you use. For our installation, we'll try using 14, but I can also show you how to switch back and forth using NVM and how easy that is. Okay, so now that we know which versions of Node there are currently active, and there's more than this that you can install with NVM, but these are the ones that you're probably going to be most interested in. You can open a PowerShell in Windows. And let's check to see if NVM actually got installed correctly by typing NVM, enter. Yeah, cool. So if you see this, it's working. This is all the help information. And we can actually reference this right now to install our version of Node. So you'll see here NVM install and then the version. So if we want to install the current version 14, we can do npm install 14. You should see an output here that says that it's downloading and installing. And it's going to install both Node and NPM. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. You use this all the time when you're working on a real Node project to install dependencies and also to manage your own application. I'll show you a little bit of that at the end. Okay, so you should be back to the command line now. And at this point, now that you've installed a version, you need to do one more thing, which is type nvm use and then the same version that we just installed. On Windows, you might get this and just go ahead and accept that. And it'll say now using Node version 14. And at this point, you should be able to type node -- version and get back v14.0.0. And that means Node's installed. Yeah, cool. So that's all there is to it. Now that Node's running, we could try starting up a quick little Node project. Before we do that, let's install our text editor. So back in our browser, search on Google for Visual Studio Code. This is a really popular text editor now. There's plenty of other ones you can use, but I think this is easily the most popular at the moment. So go ahead and download that on the installer. You can accept this. Go ahead and just use the default installation location. And after a couple seconds, we should have our text editor already. Okay, cool. So before this video, I created a little demonstration project just to show you how we can run our code using the node that we just installed. This is a web server that if you visit the kind of just the homepage, it should say, welcome to my server. So to run this, you just type node index.js down here in our terminal. And it's saying node is not recognized. So why is that? Let's try restarting. Sometimes after you install Node, you need to close any terminal windows that you have open and reopen them. So let's try this. There we go. Okay, so yeah, 99% of the time, if you get that message that Node can't be found, just close your windows, any windows that you have open with a terminal, and then restart them. And a lot of times that'll fix it. So now let's do node index.js. Now we get server running on port 3000. That's coming from this console log here. And we can go in our browser and test that out. Cool, so our program is running. So that means we did it. We got Node installed. Real quick before we end this, I'll show you how I started this project that we just looked at. It's a little web server. So if I was in empty directory. We'll just go create a new directory called my new node project and open that up. So we have no files at all right now. So, how do we go from nothing to running a node application? So the first thing that you should probably do is run npm init. And if you do that in an empty directory, it's going to prompt you for a couple things. It's going to say package name, and then the stuff here inside the parentheses is the default. So if I just hit enter, it'll choose the default. And so for the package name, it's going to use the name of my folder. That's fine here. And then a version number, which defaults to 1.00. Fine. Description. This is optional. I'll put in my sample node project. The entry point, you don't need to worry about that at the moment. That can come into play if you are going to make a npm package, but for now we'll just use the default. Test command, that is important, but not for this video. Skip that. Skip that. Skip keywords. Let's put something in here. License is whatever license you want your package to have. This isn't important unless you're going to try to open source this and can do some research about all the different license types out there and pick one. But cool. So we just go through that process, and one thing should happen. You should see a new file created called package.json. This file is really important to every node project. It contains a list of any dependencies that you've installed, and a dependency is some other npm package that your project uses. And then these scripts are pretty important to you just because you can use them to start your program and do all kinds of other cool things. To show you how a dependency works real fast, while we're still in this package.json file, if I were to type npm install and then -s for save, and then we're going to install Express, which is a web server framework for Node, which makes it really quick to start up a HTTP server. Once I install this, you'll see this new entry appear in our file dependencies, and then the dependency we just installed, and then the version number. This version number will allow you to come back to this project later and just run npm install, and then it'll automatically reinstall it with the same version number. Or in this case, when there's a caret, it will actually install the newest version of this package that's still a 4 in the first number, and this is called the major version number. But let's say Express were to update to 4.18 or even 4.17.5 or something. If you were to come back here and run npm install, you would get that newer version. That just allows you to get bug fixes and minor patch releases and stuff. Okay, cool. So now we have our dependency. We can create our file for our code. We'll just call it index.js. And first I'll just show you that this is a working JavaScript program we can run with Node. So if I were to do, let's say, we'll just get this sum of 2 and 2 and then console log that out. So if I run this program, I would expect to see 4 printed to the screen, right? So node, and then the name of our file. There's our 4. So this program is running. It just executes these 2 lines, and then quits. Something that's very common to do is to add in your package.json a script to start the program. And then it actually just does the same thing we did manually, so node, and then the name of the file we want to run. And if you do that from inside your project from now on, you can always just do npm start, and it will do the same thing as before and run the program. Sweet. So just to finish this up, I'll show you how to go from this to a real interesting actual web server. And I'm just going to copy the code from earlier. And then go back. Here, okay, so in our index.js, I'm going to put in this new code, which essentially just creates a new web server and a handler on the root path. So basically just go to the web server without any backslashes or anything at the end. And it will just send welcome to my server to the browser. And notice at the top where we have this require express line. That would not work if we had not installed the express dependency earlier. So that's where npm comes into play. And we can still run our npm start. Oh, what do we got here? Address and use. Okay, so this is because I started the web server earlier here. So and close that one. And then run it again. You can't have a server running on the same port more than once. Once a server has kind of grabbed hold of that port, it's locked and nothing else can serve on it. Okay, so now it's running again. We got our message, server running on port 3000. You should still be able to go to localhost 3000 and see our message. Yeah, so that's it. That's how you get Node set up on Windows. That was totally from scratch. So you should be able to repeat the same process. Thanks for watching. Bye.